Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Seth Grossman.
Well, the years have gone by, so I don't think I'm much of a practicing attorney now because I'm 75 years old. And people ask me what my retirement hobby is. So as my colleagues are playing pinochle and pickleball in Boynton Beach, I'm trying to save Western civilization here in New Jersey. Just a quick thing about libertyandprosperity.com. We all started out with the Tea Parties together, and I remember being there at the Grange with the Greenwich Tea Party, and basically with the contacts I made, of course, Peter Boyce and Millville, so many familiar names and faces here, and that's what allowed me to get the Republican nomination to run for Congress in 2018 without the endorsement of a single Republican leader in any of the 6 counties where the district is. Of course, I didn't make it. You may have seen my picture on the front page of the Philadelphia Daily News as a caveman when I said that when it comes to hiring and promotions, diversity is a bunch of crap and un-American. So that made me a caveman. But what I did do, they thought I would run a marginal, hopeless race, but with no money up against $2.5 million, I came so close to beating Jeff Van Drew when he was a Democrat that a year and a half later he decided to switch and run for re-election as Republican. And it's just such a way the world works. Nobody knew it at the time, but Jeff Van Drew was a dentist. My father was a dentist. My father and Jeff Van Drew worked together, so we had been close, and it's so much more comfortable having Jeff Van Drew as an ally, and he is an ally. A little bit about, before I talk about the topic, just what libertyandprosperity.com is. We look at ourselves as a resource group to strengthen whatever other conservative groups are doing. We've been doing that for 20 years. So we have our website, libertyandprosperity.com, and we invite, faith and freedom. If any member wants to post anything on our website, just contact me, and we'd be happy to put your content on our website. We reach, I'd say about 5,000 to 10,000 people look at the website each month. We have a weekly email update that we send out to about 4,200 people. And I urge each of you to go back to the table where we have our sign-up sheet and sign up for that email. And you may find out that even though we're on the other end of Route 40, a lot of the issues are the same. In fact, we have a motto. We say, whatever happens to America happens to Atlantic City first. And you'll relate to a lot of stuff. The material that we have on the tables, we invite you to take the stuff. One is an invitation to our fundraiser, where our speaker this Saturday, the 17th at 9:30 in Summers Point, is Craig Calloway, who's probably the best known ballot harvester in America. And if you watch Fox News, you'll see that Jesse Waters did a real hit job on him, repeating every Democrat talking point, because the Democrat talking points are, mail and messenger ballots and early voting and last-minute registration. It's all wonderful. It's just a couple of crooks that make the system dishonest. Truth is, the whole system is corrupt. It needs to be changed. And if you would come and listen to the ballot harvester himself, will tell you how ridiculously easy it is to get people who have no idea what they're doing to vote the way they're told to vote. And if we had in-person voting like we had for about 300 years in this country, 90% of our problems would go away. So we have this notice. The other thing we've noticed, unfortunately, with Liberty and Prosperity, is that the attention span of the average American, thanks to our wonderful leftist woke teachers union, is if someone can read a message on a postcard, they're doing pretty good. So we've taken a lot of patriotic and conservative messages, put them on a postcard. I invite you when you leave to take some of those postcards with you. One we have on wind turbines, which is just the bad science and bad engineering. The story of Richard Summers, a local hero from Somers Point, New Jersey. Basically, the war against Islamic terror started in 1801 when Thomas Jefferson was president. And one of the heroes of that war is from here. And it was delightful when I was running for Congress and coming to the Greenwich Tea Party. I didn't realize that this Richard Summers, the father of our Somers Point hero, actually commanded a guy called Cheeseman, who was active in the Second Amendment movement, because at that time Gloucester County and Atlantic County were part of the same county, and so a guy from Somers Point was commander of the Gloucester County militia during the American Revolution. And we have our connection with the Declaration of Independence. Again, a message that America is never perfect, but when we follow the principles of basic Judeo-Christian values and American liberty, we offered more justice, more safety, more prosperity, more opportunity than any other civilization in the world. And if you wonder why everything collapsed so quickly, because we had something called the Cold War of communist propaganda systematically doing what they call ideological subversion to get Americans, so they wouldn't have to go to war with America, just get America to commit suicide, and then you don't have to go to war with us. In a simple postcard and a website, we explain that. And the final thing that you'll find our project for the year, we made a historical teaching calendar. We know so much what we're against, but we made a teaching calendar of stories from South Jersey, including the Greenwich Tea Burners, of course, that talked about how basically the Quakers who came to New Jersey had this ethic of doing the right thing and created liberty and prosperity, the motto of New Jersey, without slaves, without oppressing Indians, and doing everything right, and yet made the wonderful country. So this is the organization that I speak from. My topic about American survival depends on mass deportations. Of course, it's a painful topic, because we're Americans, we're Christians, we're Jews, we believe in compassion. And we don't want to hurt anybody, we want to help everybody. And unfortunately, that compassion and kindness has become a weakness that our enemies have used and are using right now to destroy us, to divide us and weaken us. And they're doing it through immigration. And it's really not immigration, it's really an invasion. But we have been very slow to recognize it. And I'm old now, and you're old. It's been, about 15 years since we first met at the Grange Hall. But we've got to reach out to our children or grandchildren, where they will be as persecuted and miserable as the whites of South Africa, or the French of Algeria, or what the Jews in Israel are going through right now. To be minorities oppressed in your own country. That's the goal. It's happening. They could call me a right-wing extremist, a nationalist, or whatever, but we've got to understand the basic issues. And let me just make sure I know okay, so far I'm keeping the time okay. Here are some basic facts about immigration that a lot of Americans don't know. America never, ever had the mass immigration, legal or illegal, that we have today. We're told America is a nation of immigrants. But immigration to America was always limited because at first it took a long time and was very expensive for little leaky wooden sailing boats to get here. So even though we did not have immigration laws to limit immigration, the technology limited immigration because the voyage was so dangerous and expensive to get here. That changed after the Civil War, when you had the big steamships would bring millions of immigrants, and many of our ancestors came in. The Jews, the Italians, the Irish came to America in large numbers. But even then, Americans realized it was not sustainable. There had to be limits. And there was a 50-year debate And at the end of that 50 years, in 1920, and by the way, when we had the unlimited immigration, we started to see the same problems we had in Europe. The riots, the strikes, the violence, the hatred, the disintegration. And so Americans agreed by 1920 we had to have limits, and we did have limits. And those limits were about 100,000 immigrants per year. And that worked well. Because what happened when you limited the immigration, you immediately had a shortage of unskilled labor. What happened with the immigration laws when we had no unskilled labor? Businesses had to invent new machines to make American workers the most productive in the world. And the greatest increase in the economy, the greatest increase in prosperity and wages took place between 1920 and 1930 because of the limits of immigration. The unions had nothing to do with it, by the way. Unions were weak during the 1920s. The prosperity was caused by making American labor more valuable. That created the suburb, the automobile, all the good things. The unique American middle class came with limits of immigration. And that did two things. Not only was it good for the economy, but allowed all immigrants to learn American culture, speak English, and become more American than Americans within a short period of time. That was created in the 1920s. And those and by the way, even during the mass immigration, the myth is, well, we're a country of many cultures. No, we were never a culture of many cultures. We were a country with an American culture. If you look at any coin, it says, E pluribus unum. Out of many comes one. And I remember the stories in my own family coming from Eastern Europe. They say my great-grandmother came over here with a dollar bill in her hand. A dollar bill not because it meant money, but because even though in the old country she didn't speak any English, didn't know anything about history, but she did know one thing. On that American dollar she had, there was a picture of George Washington. And George Washington was admired as being a man who could have been king, could have been emperor, but just walked away and said, we didn't fight this war so I could be king. We fought this war so you could have a country to run. And that resonated around the world. And that's what they did. And also, my grandmother also told us a story that when she went to, her name was Basha from the old country. And she had a sister named Sprinza and another one called Chaya, right out of Fiddler on the Roof. But right after they came back from kindergarten, my mother said, Basha, welcome home. She said, my name's not Basha, in kindergarten in New York. So everybody came here to adopt our culture because they admired our culture. Nobody played soccer, they played baseball. Why did they play baseball? Because no other country in the world had baseball. That proved you were an American. Now, when I talk about the people will say to me, well, you're Jewish. How can you possibly be for limits on immigration? That because of those limits, the Jews trying to get out of Nazi Germany couldn't come to America and they died in the Holocaust. And that's not true. Because if you go there are many books written about it. One is a great book by Eric Larson called In the Garden of Beasts, which documents in great detail how when Jews were fleeing Germany, there were plenty of openings in the immigration quotas to let them in under existing immigration laws, but the anti-Semites under Franklin D. Roosevelt deliberately kept them out, even though there was plenty of room, using a lot of dirty tricks, like saying, we can't process your application until we get a note of recommendation from your police chief. Of course, the police chief was the Gestapo. So it had nothing to do with immigration quotas. The Statue of Liberty was not built to welcome immigrants. You probably don't know it, but the official name of the Statue of Liberty is Liberty Illuminating or Enlightening the World. It was a gift from the people of France, who were so grateful that America, by our example, showed how people could run their own country and provide liberty and prosperity, that they said, we want a statue, a monument to inspire us around the world so we can live the American dream without having to come to America. That's the whole purpose. Liberty, if you think about it, she's holding a torch of light, lighting up the world. And what's she holding in her other hand? It says on it in Roman numerals, July 4, 1776. Our Declaration of Independence. And what's our Declaration of Independence? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that we are all created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, we institute governments exercising their just powers with the consent of the government. That's what the Statue of Liberty was about. The poem about Give Me Your Tired and Poor, that was entered as an afterthought during that 50-year debate over putting limits on immigration, but eventually Americans did agree on the need to put limits of immigration. And of course we had those limits on 100,000 immigrants per year until when? 1965, when Lyndon Johnson and Ted Kennedy changed the law and increased the immigration from 100,000 to 400,000. 400% increase, which was, and then they also mandated that they had to be from certain poverty-stricken countries where the people had grown up their entire lives blaming every problem they had on America. And we've been doing that since 1965. And now I believe the figures are, with legal and illegal immigration, we have something like 15, let's see if I have the figure here. In 2020, roughly 44 million people, or 13.5% of our population, is foreign born. And that does not include the 20 to 30 million illegal migrants that were in the country 4 years ago, or the 8 million that Biden let in during the past 3 years. So this is an invasion, and again, it's going to mean that your children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews will be living as persecuted minorities in their own country unless something is done about it. So, just go through my So what do we do about it? Well, we hear the politicians, and some of the politicians we support say, well, got to seal the border, we got to fix the border, seal the border, but it's almost like having a bathtub that's been overflowing for 20 or 30 years. It's not enough to stop the leak. Your house is going to rot. It's going to collapse your house. You've got to undo the damage. And you can't undo the damage without deportations. And as much as I supported President Trump, as you know, when I ran for Congress, he started a policy of only deporting illegals if they committed other crimes. Because he didn't want to push it to the point of the TV cameras looking at innocent, children and wives and crying people. But the fact is, we have to understand that if we as a nation can't enforce our immigration laws, and if we can't do what's necessary to deport those who have broken our laws to come here, we are not going to have a country, and we don't deserve to have a country when you think about it. So that's what we have to deal with. And I always compared the way we did our immigration, and this goes back to the Tea Party. You probably heard me use that same example. Imagine trying to stop people from robbing banks. If you would say, if you rob a bank and we catch you, we're going to lock you up. But if you make it off the parking lot, you can keep the money and everything's okay. That's sort of how we do our immigration, right? So it's going to have to change. So here's what needs to be done. And everybody knows it needs to be done. The real question is, as Americans, have we gotten too old, too lazy, too cynical, too whatever, not to do what's necessary for parents to protect their children and grandchildren? First step should be an immediate moratorium on all legal immigration, except for perhaps the emergency unification of husband and wives. Not brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, emergency. And here you see the compromise bill in Congress. They were going, well, should we make the limit 5,000? No, it should be 0. The second step must be the immediate arrest and deportation of all foreigners who illegally entered the United States within the past 10 years. Why the past 10 years? Because if we try to arrest 50 or 60 million, it cannot be done. But 5 to 10 million or 12 million could be done if we have the will to do it. And as John Kennedy, President John Kennedy, who inspired me when I was growing up, said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And as a lawyer, I know it's very easy to identify illegal immigrants. We don't have to do raids and bed checks. Everybody needs a welfare payment. Sooner or later, people have kids at school, people run a red light, they get stopped by police. Little by little, but once we have determined enforcement, it can be done. Third step, there must be the arrest and prosecution and forfeiture of property of anyone who interferes with the lawful arrest and deportation of foreigners illegally in this country. That will be painful. I'm sure you'll see many churches will say, we're a sanctuary church. We have illegals living here. We don't have to send people to arrest people. We don't need confrontation. We can say, okay, start a forfeiture proceeding, and people who are giving money will be treated just like, almost treat them as horrible as they treated the January 6th protesters, right? Law enforcement shows they have the tools to do it when they want to do it, but they're always helpless to do anything when they don't want to do it. The anchor babies. As a lawyer, I know it sounds like it's a difficult problem. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution, written after the Civil War, says any person born in America is an American citizen. So we have to amend the Constitution, or we got to get the Supreme Court to change anything. No, we don't. A child born here can be an American citizen, but if the parents are illegal immigrants, you deport the parents, and under established family law, the child goes with the parents to the parents' home country. 18 years later, if the kid wants to come back here, he's welcome to come here. Hopefully by then we will have fixed the system. But it just shows how if you want to solve a problem, you can solve a problem. A lot of times you hear people come up with these complicated excuses because they don't want to solve the problem. And of course, the other thing that we must do is appoint emergency judges and hearing officers to hear claims of all foreigners who want asylum. It's ironic that on Sunday, I got a call from a campaign worker for the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for President campaign. And I guess I've been reaching out randomly to Republicans. And I said, well, I'm a Republican, I'm not interested. And they said, and I actually mentioned that, somehow they got me because I think I gave money to DeSantis at some point. And I said, they said, well, DeSantis isn't in a race. What's the most important issue that you have? And I said, well, immigration and our refusal to deport illegals. And she said, and then she sent me a video of Robert Kennedy at the border, where he interviewed a busload of, quote, asylum seekers, and found out that on 48 people on the bus, only 2 said they had a legitimate claim of asylum. The other 46 had no business whatsoever being here. So we need to appoint emergency judges and hearing officers to hear the claims of all foreigners who claim asylum, and if they don't show up for the hearing, or if they're denied at the hearing, then they have to be deported. And it's amazing why we have such a problem with people sneaking into our country. For some reason, the North Koreans don't seem to have that problem. The Iranians don't seem to have that problem. No other country, and actually Hungary now doesn't have that problem. No country that respects itself and its people has that problem. Only people who have an agenda to destroy America have another reason to defend it. So the final message I have, and I know I was told you're going to be serving refreshments very soon, is that these are harsh measures. In many ways, if we advocate them, and first of all, we have to advocate them. One thing I learned as a trial lawyer is I would never, ever ask the jury to reach a decision that I was unwilling to make as a lawyer. So if I knew I could not win a case unless the jury was convinced that person was lying, I would have to say, that person lied, and you know he lied because he couldn't keep his story straight, and you saw the shifty look he gave you. So in other words, no politician is going to do what's necessary unless we, the people, are willing to talk about what's necessary. So we have to talk about what's necessary. We have to be prepared to be called the ugliest names: un-Christian, un-Jewish, un-American, inhuman, right-wing, white nationalist, Christian nationalist. What other names could they throw at us? But you hate. You're a hater. No, I love my children. I love my grandchildren. My parents and my grandparents sacrificed a great deal to give me the opportunity to live in this country, and I love my children and grandchildren enough that I want to do the same for them. So we have to be prepared for those attacks, because they will come. But if we don't do it, this mass immigration, which is no accident, it was designed to divide and destroy us. They're succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. We have just a few short years to turn this around. I hope we could work together, not just within this room. We have to talk to our kids and our grandkids and our nieces and nephews in uncomfortable situations. But we have to start somewhere. And I really think some of the materials I have in the back, I hope you'll each take at least one card with you, and figure out a way to start the conversation by just slipping a card to one of your kids, grandkids, nieces, and nephews. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And I'll be around to answer questions after the refreshments or during.
Yeah, Seth is going to stick around. We're just going to take a 15-minute break for refreshments.
A lot of people said, well, can you give me the 10 points in writing so I can take it home with me? And I was about to do that, but I somehow got distracted, so I didn't bring copies with me. But if you go to our Liberty and Prosperity.com homepage, and I actually have an article called American Survival Depends on Mass Deportations. Just look for that article, and we have everything listed there. The other thing I forgot to mention is that I also do, I don't have my own radio program, but I'm a regular guest on radio programs that you might be able to hear. On Saturday mornings, and they replay it Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock. I have about a 20-minute segment on what's called 95.5 FM WPG. I also have a cameo segment with Steve DiOrio from 9:30 to 9:45 on 92.1 FM. And you probably don't get it this far west, but on WOND, 1400 AM and 92.3 FM, Tuesday afternoon. So that's all posted on our website as well. And there's an experiment of having me on for 10 minutes on 1210 WPHT, Sunday mornings on your way to church. You might hear something between 10:30 and 11 if you do that. All right, the one question I would like to answer, how do we get our young people to get involved in this? And the answer is, you don't. You get your young people, you have to, in other words, your young people will never come to meetings. They depend on you, so you only have a short window on certain issues that may affect them. And you have to see the opportunity when it comes up, such as when whales started getting killed. That gives you an opening to give them our postcard on the wind turbines. Or the fact that the the electric cars are so expensive, or this is so expensive. So you look for the little contradictions where we are being blamed for something, and you can't sit them down and talk to them. It's just like you just have to plant, like a lawyer does, trying a case in front of a tough jury. Just plant a little seed of doubt and then work on that later. That's the only thing that works. But when people say, well, how can we get children to come to our meetings? No. There's no substitute for you talking to your children, you talking to your grandchildren. I notice with movies, I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old granddaughter. The movies, the Disney movies, like Pocahontas is about sort of okay, an American tale. Actually, that's the next step we'll put on our website, is movies that promote American values that your kids and grandkids will still watch. I'll give you one example. I saw Sally Fields, Not Without My Daughter, a 1991 movie. It presents everything. It could have been made yesterday, but you'll notice because it's not woke, it won't pop up on the regular stuff that you see. You have to inject it. The movie Reds with Warren Beatty. There are various movies out there that can be very helpful. So try to take that opportunity. Yes.
Some questions. First one, I'm going to give you the first to read, but the first one I want to do with just someone who's thinking that you're talking about legal and illegal immigration.
Yes. Legal and illegal are both destroying America. So it's a bad answer when someone says, oh, I have no problem, just let them come in legally. No, we need limits. A country, first of all, we've had so many come in, we need a moratorium on all immigration except for emergencies. And then when we finally absorb, say, the dreamers who came in when they were kids, nobody wants to deport them, but they should fill the quota. First of all, we need to go back to the 100,000 a year quota. And then we have to let the dreamers fill the 100,000 quota, not the dreamers plus the 100,000, the dreamers instead of the 100,000. We have to think of handling it that way. But the 400,000 plus the hurricane relief, plus the this relief and that relief is not sustainable. Okay. Yeah, but the fact is it's the total number. It doesn't matter whether, so in other words, if you're taking 400,000, even if you stop all illegal immigration, 400,000 legals will still sink the country. What's important is Trump likes to look for a consensus. He's not pushing things. We have to push Trump, is what has to happen. And so far, Trump was, in the 4 years that Trump was there, what you had, the first year of Trump, the illegal immigration stopped because the cartels, the bad guys, didn't know what was going to happen. After a year, when they saw that nothing was happening, you had what was called the Trump surge of illegals in 2018 and 2019. And nobody talks about that, but it's real. Then the COVID stopped the illegal in 2020. But what happens is Trump needs to change what he did before. So he's saying the right things. He's talking about mass deportations. So he's saying it now. He didn't do it in his 4 years there. And the trouble with Trump, he had, remember, Jared Kushner, he was talking about amnesty. So we've got to hold his feet to the fire on that issue. But the answer is we have an emergency. I forgot what the figure were. We have 42 million foreign born. How many can we add? It's already 13% of the population. But it's even scarier when you look at the age of the population. Maybe 13% of the total population, but the foreign born are something around 20 to 25% of the population under 50. So we are teetering on the edge there. And we don't have time to make a mistake. That's just my opinion. What? Yes, they announced the impeachment of Mayorkas, and that's good because we know who's with us and who's against us. And that's a powerful weapon for Democrats too. This one went along party lines, but as we get closer to elections, Democrats are going to be afraid of losing elections over this. Now it goes to the Senate, and we have to see if the Senate Republicans are going to force the Democrats to show their hand, and many of them are going to be up for election. So it has to be we have to force the issue. Okay, a card says Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution requires the federal government to protect the states against invasion. Not to do so is treason. Well, there are various ways. But basically, Article 4, and I don't have my Constitution with me, it basically says that a state may not engage in war, or I forget what it is, a state may not engage in war without the consent of Congress unless it is invaded. And I think if they could call what happened on January 6th, 2021 an insurrection, you could definitely call what's going on in Texas an invasion. So it doesn't require the federal government to help, but it gives Texas the right to defend itself. And also says a compact of states. So as you know, 26 states with Republican governors signed a compact with Texas offering them all aid, and that is permitted by the Constitution. But I guess the closest thing to this is Article 2. Article 1 talks about Congress. Article 2 talks about the president, says the president has the executive power of the government. By definition, executive means to execute the laws of the country. And he takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. So you can make an argument that a president who is not enforcing our immigration laws, is not executing the laws, by saying, I will not execute the laws unless you give me money for other stuff I want. You may actually say that's the classic definition of bribery. So I would say that just on his immigration and his behavior, that Biden has committed impeachable offenses. So I don't know if that's the answer they were looking for. Okay, you said mass. Okay. How could such a chore be done? Mass deportations, as I mentioned before. As you probably have heard, President Eisenhower deported, I think, 1.4 million illegal Mexicans in the 1950s within 2 years with 750 immigration agents. How do you do that? Cooperating with state and local police. And just when people know you're enforcing the law, that if anyone helps an illegal break the law without doing their duty, they could be fired from their job, they could lose their pension, people get sick, people go to hospitals. Again, it's all ugly stuff we don't want to talk about, but just look at how the federal government treated the January 6th protesters, and you can see the power that's there. Someone gets stopped for a traffic ticket, someone applies for food stamps, all these chance encounters with the law. If people know one chance encounter and they're going to be sent back to their home country on short notice, people are going to start making decisions, well, I better get out of here before I get caught. Again, ugly, but it's one of those things. Okay, how do you feel we can fight the development of offshore wind off the coast of New Jersey? Well, the first thing is to pick up those postcards and tell the truth about it. The fact is, and by the way, when I was going to Atlantic City yesterday, they have 5 wind turbines there. There wasn't much wind yesterday. All 5 were stopped. Could you imagine what would happen if suddenly one day the Salem plant just stopped, or the Millville plant just stopped? From a science point of view, they just don't work for the very reason that electricity requires a steady supply of continuous energy. And energy that stops every time a cloud goes by, or stops every time the wind goes by. And for solar energy, they have this thing that interferes with continuous production called night. That reduces 100% of production. So you can't have that. And really the only long-term answer is the nuclear power plant. There was a guy called Michael Schellenberger spoke to in Ocean City a couple years ago, pointed out that in Salem right now, they could double the capacity within the existing footprint with no additional permits. We had a great power plant in Garden State Parkway by exit 28 in Marmora. They just blew it up because Governor Murphy wouldn't let them build a gas pipeline to convert that plant from oil to gas. But it's coming from the Biden administration, coming from Murphy. And what we've got to do, they're brainwashing our kids in school that somehow energy that doesn't work is green. You know, the whole stuff with the cars, you have to explain the car. See, they say us boomers are anti-science, right? But I grew up with popular science, popular mechanics, science fairs, all that stuff. And we all know that if you change energy from one form to another, you lose energy. So electric cars are not saving anything because you have to produce the power somewhere, put in a transmission line, you have to dig up lithium and all these horrible chemicals, and think of all the energy you waste. So we've got to talk to our kids and you talk to the science teachers, talk to your Board of Education. It's really, our kids have been brainwashed to think that this nonsense is science. And there's no substitute for re-educating our children into common sense. And that's the only way I know how to do it. Okay. With our failing population only replacing ourselves with 1.6 people, we can use the immigrants for workers, give them 90 days, blah, blah, blah. So here's where I talk about Judeo-Christian culture. So I'm going to have to give you the Judeo part of it. We're Bible-based also, those who are observed. That's why the Orthodox are succeeding, whereas the more liberal branches, I think what's going on in the Jewish religion is going on within a lot of your mainstream churches. But anyway, Jews are supposed to observe 613 commandments in the Old Testament, and guess what the first commandment is? Be fruitful and multiply that the earth be full. Which is interpreted to mean it is the job of every parent to make sure their children get married and have children. And if we are unable to do that, we are not going to survive, and we don't deserve to survive. So whether we have legal immigration or illegal immigration, the 5,000 years of culture that brought us to this point will be lost if we don't teach our children the importance of getting married and having children. And do everything we can to support them. You'll find out I'm spending a lot of time flying down to my daughter and grandkids in Florida, to make it easy for them, and writing checks when what's necessary, because there are so many obstacles to kids getting married, having children, and yet that is the most important function we could possibly do. And there's just no substitute for it. And if we're a little too old for our own children, we have nieces, nephews, friends. We've got to do whatever we can. If we can preserve our blood, at least preserve our culture. Please recommend 2 immediate things each of you can do. I already did. I said sign up for the newsletter so I can get in touch with you once a week. Go to our website, libertyandprosperity.com, and look at the article. And if you like what you see, each article has a Twitter button, which they now call X, and a Facebook button. Share it with your friends. And if you see something you don't like, let us know about it so we can put stuff that you do like. But the first step is to reach out to people you know to spread this message, because obviously if we learned a lot of stuff here at this hall once a month. If we go home and we just keep it with us, we're not doing any good. We have to be like the apostles, the messengers, the missionaries to spread the word, and the best way to do it is talking to your kids, talking to your grandkids, social media, and if you have any idea, that's where it begins. Benjamin Franklin pointed out that the most important, that we have to talk to each other. Use opportunities to talk. You can't just send angry emails to people. You have to actually have real conversations. The contact. All right, someone says, please get me the contact in Delaware for Faith and Freedom so I can try to coordinate Pennsylvania. I guess I got this card by mistake. And that's it. Any other questions from the floor before I sit down? Yes. Well, I think even the leftists have figured out that wind and solar is a dead end. And they're investing so much, because there's another reason they want the electric cars. As I mentioned, they make no sense whatsoever from an energy-saving environmental point of view. But if you want to control people, they make a whole lot of sense. So that by having everybody hooked up to the grid, and especially with the smart meters, so they could, Grossman, we don't like what Grossman said last night, and we don't have enough power. Let's cut off the power for his house first. That's what the smart meter is, by the way. So I think what they figured out is they want everybody wired in electronically, just like they don't want cash. They want to have credit card. In other words, their control depends on electricity. And they finally figured out that wind and solar is a dead end. So I think even guys like Gates want the nuclear because that's the only thing that really works, give you reliable power.
So how does he get to put up a nuclear plant and nobody else can?
Well, yeah, that's right. It says that the Constitution, we have equal protection, but we don't have equal protection. When we lived in America, we used to have equal protection. What we have now is not really America, is it? But we got to bring it back. All right. Any other questions? One more.
Nobody. Why can't we vote by county? Vote that way. How many counties are in
Well, what do you mean by county?
Who win the election? Boston County became Republican. That county was county.
Yeah.
The way you're doing it now.
Well, we have a 1962 Supreme Court decision that said that people count. Because at one time, we had 21 counties in New Jersey, and each of the 21 counties had one state senator and 2 assembly people. But then when they had what's called this Supreme Court decision, one man, one vote, they said it was unfair because you had more people in one county, Bergen County, which had, 2.5 million people, than the other 9 counties, and it was unfair for us to outvote them, and it changed at that. So no, that's a battle we lost in 1962. I'm sorry, is there someone else that...
Yes, what about E-Verify, as far as trying to control people or make it so it's impossible for them to work and want to stay here?
Well, I mean, the problem is, what's the purpose of immigration? If we tell ourselves, and I think we're fooling ourselves, if I would phrase it like this, we old people, we're getting old, our kids didn't get married because they were finding themselves, so we don't have grandchildren, so we need someone to empty out our bedpans when we get too old to go to the bathroom ourselves. So let's import a whole bunch of people who have been trained since childhood to hate us and want to kill us and be jealous of us. And let's see how long they're going to take care of us before they dump me out. All I'm saying is unfortunately, there's no substitute for doing certain things, and there are consequences for not, maybe we could call it God's law, the first law, be fruitful and multiply. I mean, there's a price to be paid. And we could probably, we're a long way down the rabbit hole, but it's not, when I say it's not too late if you start now. All right? I guess I'm out of questions and answers, and probably time as well. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me. Okay, thank you.